There was a civilization at the very center of this galaxy in a star system called Lyrae. We consider Lyrae to be the original home of all human life in this galaxy. The Lamarians were borderline physical, non-physical beings. They could phase in and out of physical reality at will. As angelic energy descends into physical reality, it enters a borderline state referred to as ET level. The Lamarians were visited by refugees from an alternate universe. This small number of physical beings, having successfully escaped the totalitarian system of their home dimension, eventually perished as a result of the physical strain on their bodies of suddenly switching dimensional frequency. The Lamarians had never before seen hard, dense bodies like those of their visitors. Their curiosity with the sensations and habits of this physical state caused them to be enamored of it and increasingly stayed in this physical reality. And over eons of time, the Lamarians degenerated into more dense bodies themselves. In the Old Testament, this is referred to as the fall from grace. They finally found themselves entrapped exclusively within the physical plane. There existed beings we call the transparent or clear people. Not much is known about them. They are not of a physical nature. Similar to the original Lamarians, they were also of the angelic frequency, but at a much higher energetic state. In physical reality, they manifested with a see-through and gelatinous appearance in a humanoid form, their membranes flowing through their bodies like webs of capillaries. The clear people are linearly from our future, billions of years ahead, and they had returned into the past with a special agenda on a mission to create a race not natural to this particular universe. We have come to call the beings that created Reptilians or Draconians after the Draco star system in which they originated. These Reptilians are lower astral beings, more or less physical, but with an ability to coexist in the astral planes. There are rumors that the clear people created the Reptilians by imprinting Lamarian genetics with their own mind pattern. The original elite group of the reptilian race is said to be light-skinned and blue-eyed. The Draconians feel it is their obligation to fan out into creation and assimilate and control everything else. They view themselves as superior to all other existence, and therefore understand it as their duty to be the righteous controllers of their environment, claiming other civilizations as slaves and resources for their own civilization. Reptilians regard themselves a perfected and superior race because of two main reasons. They are physically androgynous, meaning male and female in the same body. Outside of physicality, there is no gender, just energy. So they feel that based on their androgynous nature, they embody this higher level in physical reality. Secondly, reptilian DNA does not change over time. Mammalian DNA constantly adapts to environment, thus proving itself to be inferior, imperfect, and in need of constant change. So this logic of their mind patterns dictates an obligation to conquer, control, and absorb what they consider to be inferior species. When the Lamarians had already become fully physical beings, the Reptilians attacked their star system and completely destroyed it. The Lamarian civilization was severely decimated, but survivors managed to scatter to many parts of this galaxy, colonizing such star systems as Rigel, Procyon, Antares, the Pleiades, Tau Ceti, Arcturus, etc. At this point, the Milky Way's population was roughly 70% humanoid, 25% reptilian, the remaining 5% a mixture of other types. The Earth had become colonizable due to a now breathable atmosphere and land masses above water. And so the Draconians, on their mission to assimilate this solar system to their empire, drove yet another comet-like object through space, a vehicle transporting reptilian colonists to planet Earth. This comet vehicle is still parked in Earth's orbit. We call it our moon. Note that all natural objects in space are spinning on their axis, but our moon stays in a fixed orbit around the Earth without rotating, indicating its artificial nature. At around 400,000 BC, the Reptilians colonized the largest landmass at that time, the continent Lemuria, which covered roughly the area of today's Pacific Ocean, from the Japanese islands to the western coastline of California, also including the Australian continent, which is the largest remnant of Lemuria still above water to this day. Most of the North American continent was below water, with the exception of two smaller islands, one covering the area of Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico, another one which today is a part of Colorado and some other higher regions of the Rocky Mountain Range. These draconian settlers were the only humanoid species on the planet at the time, and their androgynous reptilian civilization flourished in Lemuria's tropical climate. They vastly extended the natural cave system in the Earth's crust and came to live more and more underground, the surface being mostly used for ceremonial ritual and temple structures. The typical reptilian ritualistic lifestyle and caste system took on a unique character here on Earth. The Lemurians distanced themselves culturally from their draconian masters somewhat, while they were still retaining the typical mindset of assimilation and control over their environment. Science, especially in the fields of biological and chemical research, blossomed, and Lemurian groups were creating various slave people in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, as well as the ancient Indian civilization. This ancestry can be seen in many East Asian cultures and religions to this day, in their use of reptilian symbolism, especially the dragon. The Hindu caste system is a direct replica of the hierarchy of the Reptilian Empire, which houses 7 subspecies. There were Lyrian renegades called the Atlans, who were very unpopular among the other Lyrian groups. They were working on their own agenda, namely the dawn of a new Lyrian Empire under their own leadership. Operating independently from their Lyrian kin and solely out for their own interests, not participating in the efforts to defend other Lyrian colonies, the Atlans had made themselves undesirable and expendable in the eyes of the Lyrian Empire. And so the Lyrian councils decided to send the Atlans to Earth to test out the waters with the Reptilians there, in an attempt to spearhead a Lyrian base on this strategically important planet. The Atlans complied with the orders of the council, and around 300,000 years ago, colonized another continent on Earth, covering roughly the area of today's Atlantic Ocean, a continent which was to become known as Atlantis. A long series of wars and gigantic battles between Lemuria and Atlantis ensued. This is documented by the ancient East Indian Vedas, which are over 100,000 years old. Both civilizations had come to realize that they were destroying each other. The Lemurians were out there alone, without potential backup from the Draconian Empire, which was not scheduled to assimilate this part of the galaxy for a long time to come. Neither could the Atlans expect any help from the Lyrians, due to their unpopularity amongst them. So, a mediation was held, and a race called the Krell from the Andromeda Galaxy was consulted to act as a neutral third party during this process. The Lemurian Reptilians and the Atlans agreed to create a prototype of a new mankind, a genetic combination of both races, as a symbolic rite to ensure a peaceful cohabitation of planet Earth. This is what the Old Testament refers to in Genesis, where it is written, "Let us make man in our image." Note that all ancient Hebrew references to God are plural, such as Elohim, which translates to "they who descended from the sky," and Adonai, which means masters or lords. The Krell also brought the dolphins, an extraterrestrial life form who coexist in physical and non-physical planes from their home galaxy in Andromeda to Earth, to function as observers and monitors of the co-creation of this new Earth human. The androgynous Lemurian civilization would agree to this mediation attempt only under one condition. The genetic baseline of the prototype was to be reptilian, and mammalian genetics would then be added to that, not the other way around. The story of how Eve was created from the rib of Adam is an allegory for the separation of the androgynous reptilian body into a male and female component. All humans on this planet have a reptilian DNA base. During the initial stages of genetic experimentations, many different prototypes, such as Neanderthal or Cro-Magnon, had been developed only to be abandoned and eliminated. Despite ongoing genetic experiments, the creation of what we have come to call Homo sapiens sapien did not solve the conflicts between the Atlans and the Lamarians. It is also rumored that both races secretly attempted to introduce dominant genetics into the experiment to retain more control of the new race, resulting in a human being who is eternally conflicted inside, with two different mind patterns struggling for the upper hand. So, despite the mediation attempts, the conflicts continued, more battles ensued, and around 100,000 BC, a gigantic war between the Atlans and Reptilians climaxed. The Atlans used their electromagnetic pulse equipment, powered by artificially manufactured giant crystals, to break up the normal structure of the Earth's magnetic field, creating a rift to literally crumble the Earth's crust at the center of Lemuria, causing the utter destruction and then sinking of most of the continent. The remnants of Lemuria still above water today are Japan, the Philippines, the Hawaiian Islands, the South Pacific Islands, Indonesia, Taiwan, Australia, and New Zealand, as well as the coast of California west of the San Andreas Fault Line. In fact, the redwood forest, which only grows in a limited area, is a remnant of the forests of Lemuria. The Lemurian survivors retreated completely into the vast cave systems. Some are rumored to even inhabit the inner surface of the Earth, so the reptilian survivors retreated into the underground of the Earth, into their tunnel network that spreads all over the central portion of the ground and into the inner Earth. This underground cave system still exists today. It's inhabited and can be accessed from many mountainous areas on the planet. Now the Atlanteans were alone on the Earth's surface. Their brutal and disharmonious lifestyle reached a new height over the course of the following 300,000 years. Extensive genetic experimentations continued. DNA of various races and animals, including the dolphins, were combined to create slave races. They engaged in time travel and interdimensional projects, one of their goals being the recreation of the ancient society of Lyrae. More gigantic crystals were manufactured and buried in the ground to change weather, to control geomagnetic flows, to alter timelines and dimensional borders. All their aggressive experimentation and abuse of knowledge eventually resulted in huge volcanic eruptions and massive earthquakes. Around 50,000 BC, Atlantis was fractured into 5 separate islands. 20,000 years later, another calamity caused even more land to break off and sink. Then finally, the rest of Atlantis essentially destroyed itself, with a few exceptions like Bermuda, the Canary Islands, and the Azores. This was the result of the collapse of the upper crust or mantle of the Earth, combined with catastrophic volcanic eruptions.